At the top of this panel, I alluded to, again, at least in my estimation, that the increased regulatory costs and almost the punitive behavior of the SEC at this juncture in time is really a significant factor in terms of, and I'd be interested in the panelists' view in terms of how significant a factor you believe in terms of that is going to drive some out of this business, in terms of that maybe on the cusp of saying it's enough at this point in time. It's just the burdens are so extraordinary that that's the brick on the proverbial back of the mule that is breaking it. So Neil, I'll let you kind of lead off with that.
Thanks.
It's like throwing red meat on the table for Neil.
The regulatory environment's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. If you go back to President Obama's administration, the regulations for all companies clear across the board was very difficult, but companies got through it. The mutual fund industry would get through it too. But the problem is the SEC doesn't really understand the investment management business, okay? At least this administration does not. From the standpoint, they look at fees as that's the best for the end user, the investor, when reality is it's a return to the end user net of fees. In the mutual fund industry, as you all know, I get paid a management fee. That's it. And then we manage the rest of the cost as best as we can for the mutual fund shareholder. But I can't raise my mutual fund fee without the vote of the shareholders. But the SECs can raise their fees, the accountants, the attorneys, you name it, printing, whatever it is, those fees can continually go up and you try and control them. So when you look at the regulatory environment today, they're just looking at fees. They're not looking at, okay, is the management fee reasonable? They look at Morningstar and say, well, how do you compare in that category, expense-wise? But what you don't know in the expense category is somebody waiving their fees. Are they just averaging it out? So the real question comes down, you get into the 15C process and the SEC is going to be looking at that very hard. What is the board doing? The question is, does the board want the risk? Although you have insurance, does the board really want the risk? You can ask a guy like me, I'll be totally honest, not that I've been lying to you today, but the simple fact is I've been in business 44 years, never had a customer complaint or a lawsuit. But that doesn't necessarily mean it couldn't come from the SEC because they said, well, you should have done this. So the regulatory environment right now is more or less a money maker for the government because their budgets, the SEC budget is $1.6 billion and they've handed out over $4 billion in fees. And those margins are good, better than the mutual fund industries, I know that.
Jesse, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I completely agree. There's no doubt it's an unprecedented era of rulemaking, and I could rattle off 5 or 10 or 15 new rules or rule proposals that it's not just the rules themselves, obviously, but it's the financial impact on the managers that have to comply with the rules. And so, as Bob said at the outset, every one of these rules results in increased compliance, regulatory, and legal costs for the manager or for the fund, which is great for lawyers, but not so great for the industry. And then on top of that, you have an incredibly aggressive, active enforcement staff and enforcement agenda that at the SEC that has no issues or no concerns with getting managers for what 5 or 10 years ago may have been viewed as technical violations that would have resulted in a deficiency letter and now results in an enforcement and sometimes a very unfortunate high profile or well publicized enforcement, which is not great for managers either. So it is in a troubling regulatory environment. Obviously at Ultimus, that's an area where we can help, and not just Ultimus, but many other service providers, and so Bob's firm certainly. And so Bob, I'd love to hear your perspective on what you're seeing as fund counsel and independent trustee counsel and how you view the regulatory landscape. I think you've shown your hand a little bit already on that, but also what your clients are saying about it, because I have to think your clients are concerned about where this is all heading.
Hey, wait a second, Jesse. I thought I was the moderator. I get to ask the questions. But the answer that, I think obviously we're all in universal agreement, I think, in terms, this is the most challenging SEC administration, certainly in my career. I mean, from one administration to another at the SEC, whether it's Democrats or Republicans in control, it's generally, of a nuanced basis. Again, there's going to be a regulatory approach from one political party to the other. This is dramatic. This is I've never seen this staff, and it's very upsetting, quite frankly, as a former staffer, a more dispirited staff. Everybody's looking to leave. Those that, have put their career, placed their career at the SEC, and they're long enough, they're not leaving. They're very unhappy. Everybody gets pulled off the musical chairs with the staff. Branch chiefs change every 3 weeks. Business is not getting done, regular business, in terms of an exemptive application. It used to be it would take 2 years to get it done. Then it improved with the process to 6 months. Now it's back to 2 years, if at all. So it's a very troubling time, and this is, as Jesse, we've been kicking around, has real cost. I mean, and implications. So, this is going to go on for, I'm afraid, for at least 2 or 3 more years at best. So it's not a happy time.